Survivor. If you're new to the show, we react live to the Circa Survivor selection counts that just came out a few minutes ago from the folks over at VSiN and Circa. We'll let you know who we took in Circa Survivor. We got some people on the show who are in Grandissimo. We'll get into that as well. And of course, we'll talk a little Circa Survivor strategy as well. I'm in a good mood because I love doing this show and because my girlfriend got 2 entries through on Seattle on Thursday night. So I'm pumped about that as well. I'm joined here by Mike Buckmiller and David Baker. Mike, I want to know, let's start with you. What is your initial reaction to these entries that just came out a few minutes ago, hot off the presses?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. We're in the ballpark on all the percentages of where we felt the public were going to land. Sometimes you get these major surprises, but you know, if we feel like we're within 2 to 5 percentage points, we feel like we nailed the board. And we felt very comfortable with it. And it's a little spooky, to be honest, that the last couple of weeks, we feel like we've just been lockstep with how things have been, how the board's been running out. And we feel really happy about where we land. So it's always a comforting feeling. In the end, the games have to go off tomorrow. So let's hope everything follows suit.
Sounds good. How about you, David? What were your initial reactions and any surprises at all for you this week?
Not too much. I was a little surprised. I thought the Texans and Broncos came in a little heavier than I thought. I didn't think the Texans would be quite so high. And then also the Broncos, considering that half the people use them week 1, that's a pretty chunky amount of people who actually had them left that used them. I kind of thought the Patriots might be a little higher as well. But other than that, everything pretty much fell into line with how I was thinking.
Mike, can you break down for us where you guys landed with your entries this week and give us a little insight into why?
Absolutely. So the tranche of our entries, we landed on Texans, Pats, and Broncos. And to David's point that he brought it up, if I could move some of my entries, I think I would slide a little bit towards the Patriots, peel some off of where the Texans were, because although we had a percentage, a range where the Texans would be, they were at the top end and a couple percentages over our top end. So if I could peel some off the Texans and move them to the Patriots, I think that's what I would do.
Gotcha. And how about you, David? Like, is there anything that you do differently now that you see the entry counts? And also remind us where you landed.
Okay. No, we put basically half our entries on Bills and half on Patriots, and put a couple of random, put a couple on the Texans just to free up the path, but I'm hoping that they lose. Couple on the Vikings. That's basically it. Basically, Bills, Patriots was where we wanted to land, and we can kind of go into some of the reasons why we didn't choose certain paths, but I thought Bills were just a pretty clear pick, and I absolutely love the Patriots this week, so I thought it was a very good pivot. I actually am surprised. I thought a lot more people would think that the Patriots are a great pivot, but apparently not. If I would have known that they came in at 7%, maybe I just muck the other picks, the Texans and Vikings. And also, I think we had a couple Broncos. I probably would have just mucked those and just put those directly on the Patriots and just done nothing but Bills and Patriots. But yeah, that's kind of where we landed and why. But yeah, I don't think I would go back and I definitely wouldn't go back and change my Bills exposure. I'm very happy. I think 30% of the field is, that's a win. That's a win for us.
So you'll be up early tomorrow morning. What time are you setting the alarm for tomorrow for that Dublin game, the Vikings?
Well, luckily I've been getting up at 5 a.m. to watch the Ryder Cup, so I'm ready to wake up early and watch the Vikings. I'll definitely be up in time to watch that. I'm not really thrilled about having anything on Carson Wentz, but I am happy about trying to sneak through kind of a mediocre team against when nobody else is on them. So I was okay with that. But yeah, I don't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily a love of the Vikings, that it was just more, it wasn't necessarily a hate of everything else. It was just kind of really just trying to put a couple of other teams so I'd have a couple of other paths. Our tickets that are left are semi-chalky, going Denver, Baltimore, Seattle. So just kind of trying to have a couple extra pivots. But that's kind of all we were. That's really the only reason why we kind of pivoted on a couple of those other spots. But we're primarily Bills Patriots fans.
Gotcha. Good stuff there from David. Mike, I want to ask you specifically about the Texans. I thought they were such an interesting team coming into the week. They reminded me a lot of Seattle last week, not because I thought they were going to be number one necessarily, but because they're a team that when you look at future value, it's really freaking tempting because there's not a lot of spots to use them in the future. Talk to me about your mindset specifically with the Texans and how you thought about them as you're going through your process this week.
Yeah, so if we remember to week one, I discussed the Texans coming out of the gate slow. I anticipated them having a rough beginning, and I felt like they were going to get better throughout the year. Do I think they're 100% healthy right now? No, but they are getting more and more healthy. And it's just the spot. It's literally the spot against the Titans. You look at the Titans; they're missing the right tackle, and what the Texans do very well right now is they have the two edge rushers, and I like the pressure versus the rookie quarterback. There's a lot of things going on over there in Tennessee right now. They traded their starting corner on Tuesday of this week. The coach had to come out and say this isn't a fire sale. It is not looking good over there in Tennessee. We actually lost in this spot last year when we had the Texans versus the Titans. Actually, we were with Baker. He was at the Raider game with us when that took place. But we're not looking at, past history, and we're not scared of any of that. If you look at the analytics here, the Texans are getting healthy. They have great matchups. And this is a game that they're going to get right here at home. I would be extremely surprised if Tennessee came in and got the W here.
I think it's kind of cool how different people come to different things that we're all using the same information that we have, and we all interpret it just a little bit different because what we were looking at is that I really didn't want to be on a 7-point team that was kind of still trying to find its way, still trying to establish an offensive line at 25% own, which is semi-hypocritical considering that we played Seattle last week, which was a mediocre team versus a bad team at a higher own, which was 40%. But it was, we used the same argument that Mike's using in this spot that, there aren't a whole lot of spots to use them and things like that. But we kind of felt like this week was a little bit different. We felt like there were a lot of really good landing spots, opposed to last week where I didn't have as good a feeling about the landing spots. And the thing about the Texans is the Texans were projected to win that division. They were even money at the start of the year. So you could say on one hand that you're getting, a team versus a bottom 5 team who is projected to be in the playoffs. But I tend to look at it as, if kind of a similar theory that we've used in the past. It's if this team is good, then some spots will arise later. And if they're not good, then, they're definitely a candidate to be upset. So that's kind of the way that we looked at it. We decided that we just wanted to, sometimes you want to fade the chalk and sometimes you don't. And Buffalo and Houston being equal chalk in this spot, I think was kind of for us a no-brainer that we would much rather have the 15-point favorite than the 7-point favorite, but do understand that Houston's immediate path at this point doesn't look nearly as appealing as Buffalo. So I do understand that reason, but yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking.
I want to ask you guys each about Seattle. They get through on Thursday. When people were making the big Seattle decision last week, the thought process was there's not a lot of good spots to use Seattle. Seattle comes out. I thought they looked really good Thursday. It was a 3-point win, but I didn't think it should have been that close at all. I'm looking at using Seattle when they play Arizona again down the road. But I also see a couple other spots for Seattle opening up now too. I like them week 17 against the Panthers. This defense looks like it could be a top 5 unit. Has your opinion of Seattle changed at all in the last couple of weeks? We'll start with you, David.
Yeah, I definitely think Seattle might be an actual decent team. And yeah, I think they definitely will have some future value coming up. It's definitely one thing that we didn't really think before, but I'm I'm not 100% on that because I'm not sure Arizona's any good and the Saints we know are bad. But yeah, I definitely think Seattle could have a little future value. So if you didn't use it, you're going to have a chance to have a team that may be better than we thought at a much lower own. So if you kept Seattle, that's great. But you probably forwent some good value spots last week as well. So we have the Chiefs left. You have Seattle. I mean, same thing, kind of. It's just you'll have Seattle at a lower percentage, which is really cool to have.
Absolutely, Mike. Any thoughts from you on Seattle?
Yeah, for sure. I was pleasantly surprised. Every now and again, there's a team that gets better as the season goes, and I'm happy to have them in our pocket. We didn't burn them when everybody was on them, and now we feel like now we have an extra card to play. So I'm extremely happy that it looks like they're a credible team, and heck, they can play on the road now just as well as they can play at home. And it's debatable that they might be better on the road now, which is you would never think that because Seattle used to be one of the toughest places in the league to play. And they've had some chinks in the armor, but I'm happy to have that card to play now.
Gotcha. Fellas, I'm curious, what's your prediction? What are you going to set the over-under at for how many people are going to get knocked out this week now that we see what the selection counts are? Start with you, Mike, or David, either one.
I'm going to say it's pretty low. I actually think this is a very chalk week. When I say chalk, I mean I just don't see a lot of upsets. I really like all these teams in these spots. Last week, obviously I really didn't think that Green Bay was going to go to Cleveland and lose, but they were on the road in a tough defensive environment. Potential. Atlanta lost. We kind of felt like that was kind of a trap spot there. I don't think any of us really liked Atlanta. Then, you had Tampa versus the Jets with a ton of injuries. This week, I really don't see many of these teams getting beat.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen any given Sunday. I don't see the Saints going up and beating Buffalo. And I don't see the Titans winning that football game. So you're looking at some lower percentages, maybe one of the three the teams under those, the top two, if you will. I mean, if we sit here, we're back here next week and we've lost 11 to 12%. I wouldn't be surprised if we're back here and we only lost 4 or 5%. I wouldn't be surprised either. I don't think it's going to be one of those big bloodbaths, but anything is possible here.
If it is a bloodbath, it's going to happen early because most of the games that have Survivor implications are all in that early window. I think there's
the other thing we do when we play this, when we have a tranche of entries, is we also take a flyer. So we actually have a couple of picks actually on the Dolphins. So when we look at the board and you see that 90 to 95% is going to be on the top 4 or 5, we want that backdoor spike card, and we like Miami here in this spot.
Wow.
We don't like them a lot, but we like them enough to put 1 or 2 entries on there because the math is astronomical. But if something would happen, we do have that opportunity to have that one outer on the end. And like I said, this is the NFL. Crazier things have happened. I would bet against it, but when we have a group of entries that we're dealing with, we do like to find an outlier outside the top 5, if you will.
Nice. So David with a couple picks on the Vikings, Mike with a couple picks on the Dolphins. I love it. We're going to go ahead and bring in our next guest, Jared Blez, poker professional. He's got multiple Grandissimo entries. Can't wait to talk Circa Survivor strategy with Jared. First time on the show. How's it going, Jared?
It's going great. Nice to meet you guys. Obviously, I really look forward to my favorite part of the week is actually waiting for the selections to come out. ODB and I talk about it every week off camera. It's just super exciting, and I can't wait to start talking about how bad of a pick Houston was in this $100,000 tournament.
I knew that's where you were coming, Bless. I knew
Bring it. Let's jump right into it, man. Why do you think that was a bad pick?
Houston was the worst pick taken so far in the 100K throughout the entire year.
All season. Wow.
Yeah, to basically get a team that was one person owned, 17 people owned Houston, right? You could take a 16-point favorite in Buffalo with 18 people own, or you could take a 7.5 point favorite, a team in Houston that just has shown that they've played really bad football, and they're the second highest owned and one less owned than Buffalo. Okay, like,
Mm, mm.
I mean, I don't really want to get into the 1K as much. I'd rather talk about the 100K, but it's just like it's just such. It's hard to even trust a team like Houston, but again, like, it's just such a high ownership for such a bad team. And it's a week where it's like you look at see, here's what's so interesting, right? You look at the selections, okay? And I have two entries in it. So I ended up going Buffalo and Detroit. And I'm
Okay.
actually thrilled when the numbers get turned over. And
Sure.
I've actually had more of a gambling approach going into this week. Um, my first instinct was to lean Denver, right? And if you
Mm.
look at Denver, they have such low ownership, which is great. But the problem is a team like Denver is actually. This is what's great about Survivor, right? Because you have a team like the Lions, who's a top team in the NFL. Denver hasn't shown that they play great football, but Denver down the road has better value than a team like Detroit. And the reason why I went Detroit is because everyone's looking at Detroit with the holidays, but they're going to be a 2.5 point favorite against Green Bay on Thanksgiving. And the reality is, if this thing goes to Christmas, then at that point, people are going to think to maybe do a chop. It might be over by Christmas, so I don't even care about that. So, and look at Detroit, right? Detroit, 11 people took Detroit, and they're a 10-point favorite. That was a great pick.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo was a great pick. Buffalo's pretty much a guarantee win. And now you're sitting there with Houston with 17 people as a 7-point favorite. Good luck.
Yeah, I will say this, and I don't disagree with anything you just said. I love the way that you broke it down. If the Texans do win, though, do you feel like you lost a little ground if you're on Buffalo, if you're on
No,
Detroit at that point?
no, I don't. No, here's the thing, right? I was sitting there watching you guys, like, you guys are dissecting the actual games of football. I'm coming from a psychological math standpoint of telling you that no one can actually predict these games. No one actually knows who's going to win these football games, okay? You guys could sit here and say, oh, this guy's going to win, or this guy. None of it matters. The reality is, even if Houston wins, it was a horrible pick. It doesn't matter because 17 people have them, right? And there's Buffalo is 90% plus to win. Detroit is probably 85% to win. Houston's probably like 70%, 75% to win. Even if they win, you actually kind of lost. It's a lose-lose if you took Houston. You accomplished nothing unless somehow Buffalo and Detroit lose and Denver, which is not going to happen.
Well, let me. I want to just kind of touch on Blez's point there. I kind of felt similar in regards to that, just from a standpoint that in Grandissimo, we don't think it's going to go to like week 15. So versus in the 1K, when you have to pick 20 winners, you're going to have to go deeper into the roster of teams. You might not have to go that deep in the Grandissimo. So Houston right now is not showing that they're a top 15 team. So you might not even have to go that deep. And with Buffalo, you don't have the holiday exposure that you do have with some of the other times when people have wanted to fade teams like Baltimore or Detroit or Philadelphia or Kansas City. They have the Thanksgiving games. So that was kind of my reason. And I kind of agreed with Blez in that regard. And then Buffalo, I think people are overstating the future value of Buffalo. I think that it's a big misnomer that they have this giant future value. Yes, they're going to win a lot of games, but they don't play very many games versus bottom five teams. They play New England next week at home, but there are three spots. There are three spots that should be close to a touchdown favorite next week, and I don't even think there'll be more than like 9 versus New England next week. And then there's like week 8 or week 9, they play at Carolina, and the Patriots play the Browns at home that week. So there are other games that you can play that week. Other than that, the next really spot for Buffalo is week 14. against Cincinnati. And we don't even know. Might Burrow be back at that point? Might Josh Allen be hurt by week 14? There's not really a whole lot of safe spots for Buffalo. Yeah, you can use them when they're a 3 or 4 point favorite, or 5-point favorite when they're at Miami or something. But are we going to be that excited about that? Probably not. So I think the future value of Buffalo is a little overstated. And I think people got a little too over their skis on that one.
Mike, I want to ask you about Buffalo because I disagree a little bit. When I'm looking at this, looking ahead, I see Buffalo a lot of times they're the third or fourth biggest favorite on the board, and then the first three teams ahead of them are all holiday teams. So I look at it as an opportunity to save me a holiday team by taking Buffalo in. I don't have the schedule in front of me now, but week 7 or 8 or something like that, where they're not necessarily the number one favorite on the board, but they look attractive to me later on. Mike, where are you at with the whole idea of Buffalo's future value? Do you agree it's a little overrated?
I'm going to have to reluctantly, I'm going to have to go with Blez here. He's 100% correct. We were wrong with how we gamed out the percentages in Grandissimo. Everybody, my partner Russell Rosenblum, he'll be on here later. We thought it was going to be heavier on Buffalo. And so far up to this week, the contestants have shown that they've been scared to push the button on those teams. I've tracked Blez's ticket and ours as well. We have undercut some of the big favorites, and I did not see 17. I did not see 30%, 17 entries on the Texans. We gamed it out. We thought there would be 6 to 8 max. And when I saw it, we're bummed, because as to what Blez said, what Baker said before, we love the contest show more than the actual games. We love the game theory. We love trying to find out where everybody's going to land to try to get in the minds. It's metaphorically playing poker, if you will. And we are trying to figure out, and those two we had off. We had more. We had close to, I tracked everybody's entry, who had the availability of that. We lost. There was 13 to start, I believe, that had multiple picks. We lost 2 to 3 of those last week. Again, they can partner with somebody else that we don't know, but we felt that the individual selections, the people that had them, have shown us that they will take the heavy favorite there, and we got bluffed. And so once it came out that the Texans were 30%, our Texans pick, it's a bad pick. We did find a spot on, because we also have 2 picks. We did find the second spot on Denver. We thought that the max they would be on 10%. We like that. I love the best offense and defensive line matchups of the week on that. I love that spot. I'm happy with that spot. Not happy with the Texans. I'm not sure if we would have pushed the button on Buffalo because of their future value. And I get that, hey, Josh Allen could go out in this game and the future value could be gone. And so sometimes you got to play that card when you have it. And so there's an argument to be said that we should have now taken 1 Buffalo and 1 Denver.
Gotcha. Blez, are you in the regular Survivor too, or just Grandissimo?
I am, but I see. To me, I don't value it yet because we're so early. So I kind of I'm very aggressive in that because the beauty of the Survivor is it's a much softer poker tournament. It's just what it is. It's just, to be honest, 80% of people that play Survivor football have no idea what they're doing. They're literally, and they're clueless. I mean, 80% people have no idea what's actually going on. And the beautiful thing is, it's the only thing in the world where you can actually win for the week and you're actually losing. So like you said, if you get through with Houston, it's almost just doesn't matter. The other thing is kind of like you were saying before about teams like Seattle. Survivor's interesting, right? Because you want to win early, but you also don't know how things end up playing out, and you also don't know who's going to end up getting hurt. So a team like Cincinnati with a healthy Burrow could be like a decent team. I mean, now people are finding, here's how I look at a Denver team here. I love Denver week 7 at home versus the Giants. Okay. I want to be able to have Denver. And the beautiful thing as this thing goes on is that a team like Buffalo and a team like Denver, you have to understand, half the entrants for Denver cannot use Denver. So on a team where Denver is going to be great, they're going to be the biggest favorite in week 7, half the people just now can't even use them. I actually agree with ODB too, that Buffalo long-term, they have no holiday advantage, number one. Number two, listen, Josh Allen gets hurt. Buffalo is just any other team. I mean, Buffalo is so dependent on Josh Allen. And I'll tell you this right now is that Buffalo's a team where when they're a big favorite, so many people are going to take them anyway. So I look at Buffalo as a team where you could take them now at 30% own and 100K, pretty much guarantee yourself a win in advance. Because I'll tell you right now, mathematically, what's supposed to happen is one of these 7-point favorites is going to lose tomorrow, and probably one of the Chargers, New England type team mathematically is supposed to lose. So odds are we may not see an upset, but there's a decent chance that 20 guys get eliminated. Like I could see either a Houston or Denver tomorrow. I know Denver plays Monday, but I could see one of those teams losing. And again, I don't think Denver's a bad pick based on ownership. I just think Denver might have some of the highest future value, along with a team like Seattle. Seattle's got New Orleans at home. Okay. A lot of people took Seattle last week. So a lot of it's not just about winning. Houston, again, I can't trust the team. I'm shocked at the line 7.5. I thought Houston might be 5.5-point favorites, maybe 5, like New England, but good luck to everyone on Houston because you guys are in trouble.
Jared, did you what did you game out the ownership percentage on Houston? Who did you for Grandissimo? What did you think the percentage was going to land on, or how many did you think was going to take them?
I thought that I was a little surprised. I had Buffalo at 1. I literally had Buffalo at 18 people. I had Detroit at, I believe, whatever they were, 11 or 12. I called that exactly to a T. I was actually lower on Houston than what the number came in. I think I was at 11 or 12 people on Houston, but I was actually slightly higher on Denver. I had 10 people on Denver, and I think it landed on 6.
Yeah.
And then I think I had 3 or 4 people on Green Bay. That was 1. I thought people would take Green Bay because they lost last week and on a bounce back game. The Chargers, in my opinion, that ended up being a good pick because 2 people owned them and they're a 6-point favorite. So The Chargers was a good pick. New England, to me, that's the thing, right? Here's all you got to understand. 4 people took New England at 5.5. Okay, 17 people took Houston at 7.
Oh yeah, no,
that's all. Sure. That's all you got to know. That's how you know Houston was a horrible pick. That's it.
Good stuff, Blez. Really good stuff. Before we let you go, what's your prediction? Focusing now back on the regular Survivor, not Grandissimo. What percentage do you think might get knocked out tomorrow, or this weekend, I should say, including Monday?
Here's the thing, right? I can't predict these football games. I'm not going to sit here and just. What I'm going to tell you is, if you took Houston in that, you made a mistake. What I will tell you, the best spot, like I sprinkled in a couple Atlanta entries. I'll take 40 people in the field and the whole thing on Atlanta as a 2.5-point favorite at home versus Washington. I actually agree with ODB. I don't expect to see a lot of upsets tomorrow. This is the opposite of last year. Last year, everyone was out after week 3. You had all the upsets, you had all the Bengals and all these teams losing. Listen, I still think obviously Houston's supposed to technically win. Right. I can't see any world where Buffalo's going to lose. If anything, honestly, maybe Denver can find a loss on Monday, but I expect Denver or Houston, one of those 2 teams, to lose. That's my prediction. But again, I don't have any information that anyone else doesn't have.
Great stuff there from Jared Blez. Jared, thanks so much for coming on the show. We'll have to have you back on again, man. This was great.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a great night.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's great. Listen.
All right, next up, we've got Rachel Aria coming back on the show, a frequent guest on the show. Rachel, I understand you are on vacation right now. You're having some fun, it looks like. How's it going?
I am on Hawaii time.
Nice. What time is it there right now?
Guys.
What time is it there right now?
I don't know. What time is it? We're 3 hours behind you guys. It's 4 something.
It's a cocktail 30 is what it is.
Exactly.
Well, Rachel, we had 24 no picks, and I'm a little worried about you with the whole time difference thing. You get your picks in on time this week?
Yeah, I did it early last night. I was panicking. I was up. I was looking at all these charts, stuff that I don't know how to do, but I was pretending, and I was looking at it, and I was like, okay, got to change my pick because all week I was on Chargers, dead set Chargers. I was going to be a little contrarian, but I also decided that before Russell went out. So when that changed, I don't know. I feel like the coach has a lot on the line and the rookie wants to prove himself, and I just didn't even want to mess with it. But so you guys are going to be surprised. I actually got really chalky this week. I went with the Bills, and I don't want to parrot what Blez just said, but that's literally why. It's like, why keep saying? I was looking ahead at all the weeks, and I was like, okay, I could use the Bills any of these weeks, but you don't want to save them too long. You don't want to get stuck with them at the end when they're resting people, or you don't even know what could happen. This was like the best value week, and I just was like, why not? I'm in Hawaii. I'm gonna chills with the Bills. I don't want to
Nice.
the last few weeks I've been having a mental breakdown. Like I had Arizona, Dallas, and then the Bucks last week too. At the end, like they were smooth sailing all the way at the end. I'm like, I don't need to deal with that. I'm in Hawaii. We're going with the
I
Bills.
found a guy in Survivor Atlas who had Pittsburgh week 1. You guys remember that with I think the 60-yard field goal. Then Dallas with you week 2, and then Tampa week 3. There's one person that had those 3. What
Yes,
a
because he
ridiculous ride
commented-
so far.
He commented on my Twitter, and I was like, buddy, let's go. I don't know what he had this week, though. We'll find out. Or this coming tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm curious. Well, it makes me scared. Whatever he's on, it might be a sweaty game. We'll see. Goodness gracious. So I understand, Rachel, you landed on Buffalo. Was it an easy decision? Were there other teams that you were like close to hitting that button on, or was it just like Buffalo all the way?
Just Chargers. Like, I'm telling you, even up until last night, it was Chargers the whole week. I changed last night, last minute. I was like, I can't do it to myself. But you know what? If they win, I'm going to be so mad.
Yeah, I hear you. What got you off the Chargers?
Just like, okay, so I don't know if this means anything because I'm not a math girl. But so when I heard the rookie QB talking about, I'm going to do this for Charlie Kirk, and not to be political or anything, but when people get really passionate about something or like they're doing something for a cause and they're like worked up, I was like, I don't know, this sounds like fire. I'm kind of nervous. And then with the coach, he seems like he's throwing a Hail Mary, putting this guy in because he doesn't want to lose his job. I don't know. It was more like emotional factors I was thinking about. And I was like, I just don't want to mess with it.
It's a good point. I worry a little bit about Brian Daboll just playing really loose and taking a lot of chances. We saw him do that in the Dallas game. Again, different quarterback, but Russ was just chucking it up. And ultimately, they ended up losing because he was chucking it up with that interception. But he was throwing bombs, and he was hitting the league neighbors late in that game. I do worry a little bit about that if I'm on the Chargers this week. Mike and David, we didn't talk much about the Chargers earlier. You guys have any strong opinions on the Chargers this week?
Well, I do know that Spencer Rattler, he definitely fits Rachel's model on
the Rachel model.
The Rachel model, Spencer Rattler, he definitely is more involved in that than Josh Allen. So
Yeah.
said.
I feel like Spencer Rattler hits that button. No, I don't really like the Chargers in the spot, coming off of 3 games, going across the country. I think we put 1 or 2 on just to have it, but I don't really feel that confident about it. I don't really like the Chargers in this spot. So I'm glad Rachel's not on it because I like to root against the people who we don't have. And I don't want her to lose because she's great on here. And what did Josh have this week?
The fucking U.S. team.
Oh, he's out. Oh, okay.
Yes. He got out last week. I know. Last night I was like, babe, what are you going to put who are you picking? And he's like, I don't have a fucking team. And I was like, oh, sorry, my bad.
David knew that. That was a needle, by the way. That was beautiful.
Oh, okay. So it's hard to see you guys.
We're going to be off the air. Yeah,
Love it.
sure.
Mike, briefly, did you have any thoughts on the Chargers this week, briefly?
Yeah, I did. Actually, there are some spots where it bottlenecks, and we're going to need the Chargers. Also, I always get a little wary when West Coast goes East Coast and plays that morning game. The Chargers actually have some offensive line issues this week, and we know the strength of the Giants team is that defensive line. And as David's mentioned in the past, they can wreck games. And Jackson Dart, he's the complete wild card. He could be great. He could suck dick. Who friggin' knows? So we don't know. The team might rally around him. It's just an unknown, and I don't want to put any equity on something that I have no idea how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, the Chargers starting guard is going to be out tomorrow. We know they've been without their tackle all year with Slater, and we're going to wake up tomorrow and find out if their center is going to play or not. He's been questionable all week, so that's going to be fascinating.
Does your friend have a pick, Rachel?
She's such a football girly. Vikings. She's a Vikings girl. We're both from Minnesota.
Go Vikings.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I have the Vikings this week, too.
I bet on the Rams, too.
Oh, I like the Rams too. All right, good. Go Vikings, go Rams.
What time is that Vikings game Hawaii time tomorrow?
Oh, geez. They might still be up.
You guys might still be awake when that Vikings game starts tomorrow in Dublin because it's a
Actually,
6:30
definitely
Pacific
will be.
time. So, whew,
Oh my God. Here
goodness
we go.
gracious. Rachel, any other thoughts here on week 4 before we let you go?
I think that's all I got for you. I got to get back to my Mai Tais.
Understandable. Thanks so much for
fun.
taking the time, even though you're away and enjoying yourself. Appreciate it.
Always.
Enjoy.
Bye,
Have fun.
guys. Go Bills!
Bye. Go Bills.
All right, good stuff there from Rachel Aria. Always love having her on the show. We've got James joining us now to talk a little Survivor Sweat Marketplace. We had our first taste of blood, our first taste of carnage in Circa Survivor. So I'm guessing things have changed a little bit in the marketplace. James, how's it going, and what are you seeing in the marketplace, buddy?
Yeah, thanks for having me again. It was a record-breaking week in the marketplace. We had the most transactions ever in a week. There was people selling, almost a lot of micro shares, to be honest with you. There was probably 14, I think there's 14 entries total that changed hands. Pick control changed and like 14 entries. But the vast majority of shares that were sold throughout the week were these micro shares, people buying, 2%, 5%, 10% here and there, diversify their interest, and, several players buying multiple shares of different entries. I think I said it last week on this show, people know the storm is coming and they're trying to diversify their interests and spread themselves out with different micro shares on different teams.
Good stuff. Any Grandissimos in the marketplace right now?
There was a handful of Grandissimo shares that were sold this week as well. Everything obviously selling at a big premium. The Grandissimo shares were selling at about $1,800 a point. Obviously they're worth just under $1,200. And then the regular Survivor, those were selling for pick control. Those were selling for around $4,000 an entry. We're selling this past week, and obviously those are worth $1,300 and change. So they're selling for a significant premium right now. People are paying over $4,000 for a Survivor entry. But yeah, we had shares of Grandissimo, we had shares of Survivor. There were some Circa Millions shares that were sold this week. So a little bit of everything in the marketplace.
Good stuff. In my podcast, the Last Men Standing podcast, we partnered with you guys over at Survivor Sweat and had some entries on the marketplace. I think there was 5 of them. James, fact check me on this. Did they all go within an hour?
They were gone within the hour. Yeah, you had tweeted out that shares of your entry were in the marketplace. They were gone within the hour. We've seen these people, like when especially when you post on Twitter, when people know, like when ODB posted when he had his Grandissimo shares in the marketplace, they go quickly within the hour for sure.
Good stuff. Very good stuff. I've brought this point up before, James, but I want to bring it up again. There is a point later in the season, correct me if I'm wrong, where we start to see the trend flip, right? Where suddenly they're not going for 4 times intrinsic value anymore. They're actually going for undervalue, right? That has historically been the trend. What's your best guess, just based on history, when that flip starts to happen?
I generally just say around Thanksgiving is just a general, ballpark. It really just depends on how much carnage there is. Just for reference, like last year, this week, these entries were selling for $30,000 an entry going into week 4. And obviously this year they're selling for $4,000. So it really just depends on the carnage that there is out there. But generally speaking, I mean, it's usually like around Thanksgiving where you'll start to see them selling at a discount. It just really depends on the price point, quite honestly. It's all supply and demand.
James, if someone's tuning in, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say that time's coming. Look, there's a reason why teams are 25, 30, 40% owned. It's because they're not supposed to lose. But every single year, somebody that's 20%, 25%, 30%, 40% owned loses. And it happens multiple times during the year. So if you're holding on to your entry and you think like, I'll just wait for that, big one, and then I'll cash out. Well, you might get swooped up in that wave. And then you also might just think like, well, I'm going to wait for this to buy, because I want it to be a little bit less. You just don't know like when it comes. And it could actually be one week where the 40%, a 20%, and then a 12% all go. And then your entry could be worth a ton. But there's a reason why it was 30,000 last year. And that's because there weren't very many entries left. And you could say like, yeah, well, I'm just going to wait and then I'll just cash out at 30,000. Well, the reality is, you're probably busto, and that's the reason why it's 30,000. Because a lot of people who do actually buy it to sell it, a lot of times they end up on the most popular picks because they feel like it's the safest pick, but it's also the toughest way for you to actually monetize your entry. You really need to be on something else and hope just 25 or 30% or loses, and then you can really monetize it.
Good stuff there from David. James, for someone that's tuning in for the first time and they're like, what? You can sell pieces of your Circa Survivor entry? This is my first time hearing this. Can you give us sort of a brief rundown of what the marketplace is and how it works?
Yeah, you can sell. So basically, your entry is like an asset. You can sell anywhere between 1% up to 99%. You could keep pick control if you wanted to keep pick control and just sell, like I mentioned, those minority shares. Or you could give up pick control and you could transfer pick control to someone else and have them take it over if you sell a majority stake. There is obviously a contract between both parties. So you go in the marketplace, you can buy, or if you're selling, you list your entry. As soon as someone comes in and buys it, it triggers a contract. Both parties have a chance to review that. Once that contract is signed, then we collect funds and disperse to the seller. So it is a fairly quick process. Everything is done through Survivor Sweat. Like I say, it's a great way. If you're not in the contest, you can come in, you could buy shares, sweat along, or you could take over an entry.
Yeah, what I like about the marketplace is when you're shopping around, you can see what teams each entry has selected. So maybe you've got an entry that you've used Philadelphia already, and you're starting to get a little nervous. I'm not going to have the Eagles on Thanksgiving. You can look for an entry that has the Eagles available, and then you might have two different paths on Thanksgiving if you're still alive. So I love that aspect that you can actually shop around and pick the specific entry that you want. James, any other final thoughts on the marketplace before we let you go, brother?
No, I mean, we're, like I say, every week you check it out. Each day there's new inventory that's listed in there. It's like I say, the celebrity listings like yours and ODB's, whatnot, those sometimes go quickly. But check in every day and there's new listings in there every day. And like you mentioned, you can see the teams that they've used. And so it's a great way for you to go in there. And like you say, you could use it as a strategy piece if you want to diversify the one you have with teams that are available on the other entry. But it's a great way to get involved in the contest if you're not in it.
Good stuff. Check out the marketplace over at survivorsweat.com. Thanks so much for coming on the show, James. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys.
Good
Thanks,
stuff.
James.
I'm going to bounce back in with you guys while we wait on Mr. Russ Rosenblum. He'll be here in a second.
Sounds good. Appreciate you, Nick. Question for Mike and David. We talked about what percent of entries we think could be eliminated this week. I want to know what you guys would set the over-under at for final number of winners at the end of the season. Start with you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a fun thing to game out.
Yeah.
I think Pool Genius went out and I think this past week and said something like 18 and a half, and when you have 13,000 plus in there, it's hard to fathom that you're going to get there, especially when the chalk keeps up to this point, the chalk keeps, holding tight, but, there's going to be some big knockouts here, and it'll be sub 20.
Below 20 for sure. Russ,
I'll
welcome to the
take
show,
over.
buddy. You'll take the over on that? Okay, interesting.
I'll take the over.
All right, I'll take the under, no juice.
You got it.
I literally just logged in and I heard that, and I was going to say 17 and a half, and Mike gave what you said, 18 or something. So I'm right there.
Genius put it at 18 and a half. It's going to be sub 20.
Gotcha.
I think so. I mean, look, it can go either way. I mean, it obviously, right? You could end up with 70 people and you could end up with 3. It's just if you get a couple of huge special week upsets.
Yeah, it basically comes down to Christmas and Thanksgiving. I mean, if Philly, Baltimore, and Kansas City just win those games, then
correct.
I think you could have 6 figures.
You could.
I don't think that's out of the realm. Like we tend to be seeing right now that there really is a dissection of horrific teams in the NFL. And if Tennessee, New Orleans, the Browns, for the most part, I mean, soon they're going to be putting in a rookie quarterback with, not good offensive weapons, probably even trade away guys like Judy and Njoku. Like they really
should, and they're right to do that. They don't care about Survivor.
You're looking at like 4 or 5 teams that you can really pick on each week. And, I would set the over-under on wins by Browns, Saints, Giants, Tennessee, Panthers at like maybe 15 combined. Like, I mean, these teams are bad. So, but who knows? Tennessee.
Right. No, you're right. It's just it just depends, right? Like, if you have the 1 week where the win comes in. Like if Buffalo loses this week,
Right.
Like it's different if New Orleans beats, Tampa Bay or something but if New Orleans happens to have one of these games where everybody's loaded up on it,
Exactly.
and it feels like it can happen. Like it really feels like it can't happen. And yet we all know, like when somebody goes, okay, there's no way New Orleans can win this game. And I'm like, look, I agree they're not going to win this game. But like when you say there's no way, like, am I willing to actually bet my house? No, I'm not. Like
well, there's a 10% chance that they can win the football game.
Right.
And
like I'm not
so
going to lay 9 to 1.
So there is a chance. And the other thing about putting these over-unders is I try not to get stuck in the moment, if you will, because 2 years ago, all the chalk through week 7, everybody's like, oh, how many people are going to be at the end? And then it just, went haywire. Last year, week 5, they're talking about, are we going to do a second
chance pools? Yep.
So it reverts to the mean each and every year. And so far, I think the first year that with 1,000 entries, they didn't have the special weeks where they land on 35 winners. Right. Every other time beyond that, it's sub 20. So
for those who don't know, Russ and Mike are partners, and they are former Circa Survivor champions. So
not like dating partners. We have wives. Like not that kind of call, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Business. I love the Seinfeld.
He's way too messy. Look at his office. He's way too messy for me.
Yeah, it's good. This is the clean part. That's why I had the Circa thing up last time.
They are Circa Survivor partners. We got to pick Mike's brain a little bit earlier on the show, Russ. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the beginning of the show or not. But
I heard nothing. I'm hosting a few people for dinner that I literally said I got to leave and I got to do a pod. So I barely even know like what the selections are. But
fair enough.
I'm totally in the dark. Let's see if I get close. Yeah.
The little bit that you saw of the selections, you see Grandissimo right there on the screen in front of you. And you might have to squint a little bit, but here you see the week 4 selections. Does anything stand out, Russ? I'm curious if there were any surprises, anything that raised your eyebrows a little bit.
Not really. I mean, I took a very, very quick look at this, and I'm Nick, if you put Grandissimo back up for me. I assumed it was Nick. Thank you. That was impressive. I know Mike thought there'd be more on the Bills and less on the Texans. I don't know if that's what he said, but I know that, he thought or hoped. I mean, either way, we're going to end up in the same spot, even if you tell me this is the board. It is what it is. Interestingly, and I don't know what Mike said in the context of this, in the main, we ended up taking more Texans and then more and then more. And then in theory, if I know the breakdown, I might actually take even more just to have a slightly bigger separation from the field. Here, and I don't know what David said, but I have a guess since what I saw before when he said he ended up taking the Bills, and I'll explain why later. And I don't know what the reason was because I did miss it. But I know last week, like you discussed the leveling and you thought people would try to get away from the chalk and that it could then be a decent spot. So the Bills at 31%, it's close. If I know they're at 31%, I still think I save them, not just because of that, because they have so many great spots. But yes, I was hoping they'd be closer to 45% or so, 40, 45, mostly because then even when they advance, right, I have them and other people don't. Right. And so that's something that I would have hoped that more people were on them, because now when I take them in a few weeks, there are still going to be lots of other people that have them. And so that's not going to be as comforting. It won't be 31% that probably take them, but it could be, 15 where I'm hoping it's, nobody has them left. It's 5. So I am surprised people, manned up enough and that as many people as they did took the Texans in both contests. Yeah, we almost, and I don't know if Mike mentioned this either, we almost doubled up on the Texans. We agonized over that for a long time.
Wow.
Before we decided not to. And we just decided it's one of those times where I don't know if we had no other partners, investors, none of them chime in. But if we didn't think we were accountable to anybody else, maybe it's easier to pull the trigger on 2 Texans. But I hate to look the people in the eye that invest and go, hey, sorry, I know we busted, but we took the 0-3 team twice.
Right, and we took on a team that hasn't won a game yet.
0-3, exactly. Right. It was just hard to do.
So Russell, did you consider any other team other than, I know you put one on Denver, but you also only had one left for Denver because I know you used one Denver the first week. What were the other considerations? Did you have any other considerations?
Yeah, on Wednesday when we left the podcast room, we were talking in the parking lot as we're literally getting, ready to drive away. And Mike goes, well, looks like it's going to be the Texans and the Patriots. I go, well, that's what I have too. So I guess that's what it's going to be. Unless, do you think you like Miami? He goes, I don't think so, but let me go, break it down. And then later he said, there's no way I can't. We'll take a teeny piece of Miami in the main, but I just can't do it. They could really lose this game. And then we talked about New England, and it was the same sort of, we'll take a position in the main, but he did, just looking at the game, he just thought it was too likely they could actually lose that game.
It's funny you say that because I actually thought, my two were, it was Bills or Patriots. And that was really all it came down to for me. And I thought the Patriots were a really sharp play. And I thought that, I thought more people would choose the Patriots. I didn't think the Bills were going to be like astronomical or anything, but I did think that I thought less people would play the Texans and more people would play the Patriots. I thought the Patriots were just sharper. But the reason why I took the Bills over the Patriots is sneakily, I think the Patriots might have more future value than the Bills. And people want to
the Bills? Did you say?
Yeah. Well, because everybody wants to say the Bills have a lot of future value, but they are going to probably win more games, but the Patriots play more teams that are in the bottom 7 rankings than the Bills have left. The Bills literally have at Carolina, and they have home for the Patriots, and they have home for the Jets. And I think the Jets game might even be the last game of the season when it might not matter.
Right.
So they really don't, even though they're probably going to win a lot of games. It's a lot of 58 to 65% win rates, whereas the Patriots, they have like a lot of 40 to 50%, and then they have
you dodge those
4 or 5 spots that are 65 to 75. So I felt like sneakily the Patriots may have more future value than the Bills, but it's just easier to say, well, the Bills have more future value because they're probably going to win 13 or 14 games, but it's still not spots that I'm warm and fuzzy. Now, you guys play a little differently than I do. So you guys are excited to play a Bills team when they're 3.5 or a 4.5 or a 5-point favorite, and you can have them at 10%. Whereas I'm more excited to play them when they're 7.5 or 9-point favorites. So I could understand you guys thinking the Bills had more value because you're not afraid to push the button. And I commend you for that. Like, that's an awesome way to play the game. But you're not as afraid to push the button when they're a 5.5-point favorite as I might be.
Yeah, David.
By the way, you're
let
right.
me jump in real quick, Russ.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me read you the Patriots schedule real quick to David's point. Saints week 7, at the Saints week 6, at the Titans week 7, at home against the Browns week 8. Could you have a better back-to-back-to-back schedule opportunity than week 6 through 8 for the Patriots? Then you've got Giants week 13 at home, Jets week 11 at home, and then you end the season with Jets and Dolphins. So if you believe this Patriots team is good, and I think the jury's still out on that, is the Patriots team good? A lot of people have different opinions, but if you think they're an above-average team, those are some pretty good-looking spots for sure. But go ahead, Russ.
But to your point, even if you don't think they're above average team, then you don't want to take them now because you don't think they're above average, but you're buying yourself time to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what we were doing. I'm saying, to David's point, right? You're buying yourself time to figure it out. If it turns out they lose now and they're a dud, maybe you don't want them in any of those games, or maybe one of them, right? But if they win out and they turn out to be a little better than expected, those all are good spots. Like, they're all good spots.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add too, because we get on here and we talk week to week, but there's also the understanding that we all have our own path and our own deck run out. And so based on when you're looking ahead for future value in certain weeks, we obviously have different teams than you have in your back pocket.
That's
and
very,
so,
very, very true.
So although, at this point in time, that makes sense for somebody, it might not make sense for somebody else, because we all have a different set of cards that we are playing the farther we go.
That's a great point. And I was going to actually mention that to Jared, but we had Rachel come in. Like the Lions were somebody that I think are in a very good spot. And if I was in Jared's spot, he didn't use Baltimore in week 2. We did. So I didn't feel like we could burn Detroit here, because that would leave us only one home favorite for Thanksgiving, and that would be Philadelphia. Now, do I think I'm going to play Detroit against Green Bay? Most likely not. I'm most likely going to play Philly because I've already used Baltimore. But what if Jalen Hurts gets hurt? I want to have a second home team. Now, you guys, for instance, you guys use Kansas City. So you also used one of the Thanksgiving teams. So maybe you didn't want to play Detroit. But for Jared, who didn't, I think Detroit was a fantastic play. But for me and my path, it wasn't. That's why I didn't even mention Detroit as one of my options, because I didn't feel like on week 4, I could have burned 2 of the 3 home teams for Thanksgiving. So, I definitely agree, Mike, that your path is not my path because you've used different teams than I've used.
Yes.
And you're right. And it's actually one of the, like when you say the way we play the game is different, in some ways it's higher variance, I suppose. But one of the reasons we agonized over taking the Broncos with our second pick, we now don't have the Broncos in Grandissimo at all. We've used them, right? And they've got a couple of decent spots. And one of the justifications or rationalizations or the reasons, we looked at it and we said the other couple of spots where we would want to take the Broncos likely are going to be the spots where they're going to be taken by 35% of the field, assuming that they have them left based on.
Yeah, if those people are still in at that point.
Exactly. Assuming they're still in, they're going to be, big favorites or the second biggest favorite. And then the third time we would consider taking them, and everyone would say this is crazy, but it's to the point you just made, is the Christmas game, which I believe they're in Kansas City, which is awful. They're like 36% in the look ahead. So of course, right now I wouldn't be planning on taking them. But if you reached a point down there where, Mahomes is hurt or they lose again this week and you look up and they're not playing for anything and he peels off, like who knows, right? If Denver turns out to be a little better than expected, that could be an opportunity. And I hate to lose the optionality of it. Like anything could happen between now and then. Even though, so I'm looking going, I want to save them from a time they're 36% just in case, as opposed to the game where they're 75% or 74%, where I have a feeling I won't want to use them anyway. And then I looked and we had them at about 10% and they're at 10%. And we're like, okay, well, I mean, we can get the Broncos in a good spot at 10%, or we can get them in a technically better spot at maybe 35%. The way we play the game is to try to get teams when they're 10% owned. And so if we're going to have that opportunity now, we should take it. And that means when we can't take Denver in a couple of weeks, obviously we lined up teams we could take with the expectation they'll be in the 10 to 15% owned range when those weeks come. And we'll see what manifests. And there'll be games we don't love. There'll be games we're kind of stuck. We've pigeonholed ourselves a little bit there. But that is the opportunities we're looking for. And who knows? I don't think the Bills lose this week. And, sometimes you say about teams, I don't think they'll lose, but if they do, it wouldn't really shock me. Bills losing would really shock me. And yet, 9-1 is a pretty big long shot in the NFL like that. You don't get too many that are bigger, but 10% is 10%. I mean, it happens.
Absolutely. I believe we've got a question from the audience here, if producer Nick wants to pull that up. Jason Lisk, good friend of the show. I've got Bills top EV spot in week 10 at Miami, projected 75%. But no other team projected that high on a tough week. A pool could concentrate on Chicago Chargers or gulp the Panthers in week 10. Yeah, the one thing I noticed about week 10 is I think the Broncos have a good spot in week 10. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, and the Bills do. And I worry for people that have used the Broncos and the Bills on the same ticket. Week 10 starts to get a little thin when you start looking at that week. But any reactions there? And Nick, if you can pull that question back up, any reactions there to Jason's comment here, guys?
Well, let me look at week 10.
Yeah, we went through the same thing on week 10 when we decided to burn the Broncos. That's one of the weeks where we looked and said, who are we saving? Go ahead, Mike.
Yep.
Yeah, quickly on week 10, it was definitely something we had discussed, specifically where it was Broncos, Bills, Panthers. And obviously the Chargers and possibly, Chicago, but there was some critical thinking as it relate to both week 7 and week 10 for us. And again, we're playing this to get to the finish line. Whether or not it gets there in Grandissimo, that's a different story. But we have to play with the information that we have right now. And the information we have right now is it's going the distance.
For me, guys, the way Seattle looked Thursday, that opened up another option for me on week 10. Seattle looked good in Arizona. They're going to be in Seattle that week. That wasn't a 3-point game. You had the taunting penalty that knocked him out of field goal range. You had the missed field goal. You had the fumble after the interception. I mean, that Seattle looked like a 10-point better team. I'm not saying the spread should have been 10 points, but it looked like they should have won the game by that much. I feel very comfortable with Seattle week 10 personally.
I said to Mike earlier today, I had no dog in the fight. It didn't really matter to me. I didn't have a bet on it. You know, I kind of wish Seattle lost at the end, only because people look at the record. They look at it's exactly what you're saying. I now know Seattle, like whether they won or lost at the end, let's say they missed the field goal, right? Like whatever, whether they won or lost at the end has no impact as to how good the team looked.
Exactly.
None, right? And if they lost, I think we get a little bit better value on them later than when they win.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, he's got a very good point. Looking at week 10, you know, especially for my card, I have now used Buffalo, Denver, and Seattle, and those are 3 of the top 6 spots. So I definitely have to keep that week in mind. The Chargers have Pitt at home is pretty good. You know, if Houston wins this week and they turn it around, they have Jacksonville at home. That's a potential. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of great spots. You have, you know, you have Indy versus Atlanta. It's not that great. You know,
no, and like you said, if New England wins here, and if New England looks better than you thought, you're not looking to take Tampa.
For sure. Not looking to take. Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of like Chicago versus the Giants, but like, are we really going to trust Chicago at that point? And if the Giants are better, so he definitely has a good point there. And week 10 is maybe a spot that I didn't foreshadow with the Bills. So that's definitely, you know, if I would have seen that, maybe I would have considered, you know, the Patriots, but obviously a lot can change between now and week 10. But yeah, that's a very good ticket to have in your pocket, especially if the Dolphins end up imploding, which is definitely possible by week 10.
It's a question of when. Like they're going to implode. It is. I mean, it is what it is. It just is what it is. I just don't know if it's going to be by week 10 or week 15. Like I don't know.
Sure, fellas. This is how I want to end the show this week. A little different. I want to ask you guys a question. We'll go around the horn. Just a quick 1 or 2 word answer to each of these questions. I got 2 for you. Question 1, and we'll start with Mike, Russ, David. Bigger surprise: 1 and 2 Broncos, 1 and 2 Ravens, or 1 and 2 Chiefs? Mike?
I would say 1 and 2 Broncos. Both the Chiefs and Baltimore have had, you know, they're playing tough teams.
Good point.
And, you know, the Broncos, the way they finished the season last year, minus the, you know, the playoff loss at Buffalo and whatnot, and coming into year 2, another year under in Peyton's system, I really like Bo Nix. I thought they were going to be able to run the ball effectively. I liked their defense. They had easier teams to play against. And, you know, the fact is, and I actually misspoke on the pod the other day, it's actually Denver's only trailed in the Denver hasn't trailed in the 4th quarter yet. They've lost at the buzzer twice. So Denver can conceivably be 3-0 right now.
Yeah.
And yet they're sitting there at 1 and 2. You know, Kansas City started off, they have the wide receiver issues. They've been nicked up, and Baltimore's just playing tough teams. They're playing the Buffaloes of the world. And, you know, what's crazy is one of Chiefs and Ravens are going to be 1 and 3 after this week. Yeah. And that's, you know, it's hard to believe.
Absolutely. Russ, your thoughts on that? Which is a bigger surprise of those 3?
Also not going to get a 2-word answer, but nice to try. For me, it's the Ravens. I mean, the reality is I'm not saying they should be 3-0. They've had a very tough schedule, but a team that's the caliber of the Ravens, you have to win at least one of that Buffalo and Detroit game. I understand they're on the road in Buffalo, but the game was supposed to be over. Like they're supposed to win that game by the 4th quarter. And the Detroit game is what it is, but they're at home. They're supposed to win that game. That to me is a surprise. Kansas City is a less of a surprise to me. I think I said this last week too. I think Kansas City is very good, but I don't think they're the elite team that they were. Like it used to be that really when people were putting them in tier 1 with other teams, Kansas City was really kind of tier 1 by themselves and everybody else was like 1A. And now I think the Kansas Cities are sort of the 1B and everybody else is like the other 2, like the Buffaloes and the Baltimores to me I think they're better right now. Maybe we'll see with Kansas City and Mahomes. finds a way to will them to wins. But the team didn't. Like I saw Mahomes last week scrambling, like when his wide receiver decided to spike the ball into a lineman and they decided it's like a live ball, right? I mean, and Mahomes is the guy racing out there trying to get on the ball. The guy that's making, $55 million a year is there scrambling for loose balls, and the wide receivers like wandering back to the sidelines, right? I just don't feel like they've got their shit together right now. But I think that Baltimore to me is the most surprising right now.
David, Baltimore, Ravens, or Chiefs? What's most surprising that each got off to a slow start?
Ravens for me, just because I think they're the most talented team in the NFL. So to say that they're going to lose two of their first three games, two of them were at home. So yeah, I mean, as good as I think that the Broncos can be and will be, they lost in a pick'em game in Indy, and they lost as an underdog at the Chargers. So it's hard for me to say them, and I don't think the Chiefs are very good. So that one doesn't really surprise me. But crazy enough, the winner of the Dolphins-Jets is going to have the same record as the loser of the Ravens-Chiefs. So, I think we all think the Dolphins are going to win. I have the Dolphins. I wanted to play Dolphins in some Survivor as well. I have Dolphins in the millions. So yeah, if the Dolphins win like we all think they will, the Dolphins, who we say are inevitable to implode and are somebody that we should actively be hunting to pick against in Survivor, is going to have the same record as the Kansas City Chiefs. After a month of the season is kind of pretty crazy in itself. But that's the NFL, and yeah.
I like Russ and David's answers, but if this was Around the Horn, the ESPN show, I got to give the points to Mike on this answer. For me, it's the Broncos, because I have an explanation for why the Ravens have a bad record. It's those two fumbles in that game. And I have an explanation for why the Chiefs have a bad record. It's because those wide receivers are hurt. I don't know what the hell's going on with that Broncos defense, guys.
Leverage.
I love Pro Football Focus, especially. It's not a perfect tool, but for cornerback ratings and offensive line ratings, I like it a lot. How are Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss average graded cornerbacks this season? I don't know what's going on with that Broncos defense, and that, for me, has been the biggest surprise. Moving on here, guys, final question. Let's try to keep this one a little shorter. And this is a tough question, because I think this is going to be a lot easier to answer on Monday, so I'm making it tough for you guys. Where do you rank the Indianapolis Colts right now in terms of best teams in the NFL? Start with you, Mike.
So I was a little higher on the Colts than most, but I'm not naive to think that they're a top 10 football team. I would say they're probably within they're top 15. They're in between 10 and 15.
Okay.
I think listen, we like the Colts the way that they were built. They had a really good team. They were missing the quarterback. They had a good offensive line, good defensive line. They were built correctly. The GM does a good job over there. I love the coaching staff. They were that quarterback away, and they missed on that quarterback. They brought in Daniel Jones. He's not as good as we all think he is now. He's not as bad as we think he is. And I think they have playmakers. They can run the football. I like that football team. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, so I don't think they're in the top 8. And if you told me they're, 8 through 15 or 8 to 10, like, I'm not going to argue, but I think they're in between 10 and 15. And they have the chance to creep up there if they stay healthy and some other teams fall back. But I think they got something going over there. I just don't know if they are a top 8 football team, top 10 football team.
Russ?
Put it this way. I mean, they've played Denver and they won. And then they had like 2 bye weeks. So, I mean, and by the way, Mike has said we took Indy in Grandissimo last week, right? So, we were bullish on Indy, but one of the reasons we did it is, I mean, I'm looking at their schedule. I don't know what the current line is. Like, I have not looked. I'm guessing it's going to be 10.5. And if you tell me it's 11.5, I'm taking the under. Wins for the season, I'm taking the under, right? So, I don't know, like, I agree with Mike. I'm probably saying like top 15 teams. I don't think they're top 10. I know they're 3-0, but whatever. I don't think they're winning 11 games. They'll make the playoffs. I mean, look at their division. But yeah. I don't think they're winning 2 games in the playoffs. They may win 1, depends on the matchup.
Good
I'll
stuff. Your
say
thoughts on
they're
the Colts?
I'll say they're the 14th best team. I think they're probably the 6th best team in the AFC and the 14th best team in the league. And I also think that the Rams are going to beat them by 10 points this week. So, yeah, I think they would probably not make the playoffs in the NFC, but they'll probably make the playoffs in the AFC is kind of what I think, because I think the NFC is deeper. But they're a good team, but they're just kind of in that pack of good teams. There's probably 12 teams that are on that. They're in the Seattle, San Francisco, Arizona, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Chicago bucket of teams they're good, but just somebody I'm never too confident to pick against in Survivor, somebody I'm never too confident to pick on in Survivor.
They get the benefits of a soft division. They'll make the playoffs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, fellas, I think we've done all we can. I know Nick wants to come in here and kind of give a little announcement before we send our farewell.
Yeah, I should have said this when we were saying goodbye to James. If you're watching on YouTube, the link to the Survivor Sweat Marketplace is below you in the description. Also, I just threw the Marketplace link in the chat, so check that out if you already have skin in the game and you want more skin in the game, or if you're like Josh Aryeh and you're completely out and your wife is playing Survivor, maybe get back in.
Wow. Second jab at Josh. That's tough. That's tough. I think we might get another middle finger next week. I have a feeling.
I know.
Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, I don't know what time what time zone y'all are in that are listening, but set those alarms early because we've got some Dublin football tomorrow, and there are a couple people on the Vikings. Enjoy the day of football. Good luck to everybody. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, good luck. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. Good luck to everybody.
Have a good one.